Welcome to the Gen Z Childhood Trauma Iceberg Community Edition. If you thought this series was over, then you were wrong. I took tons of requests from my community for things that scared them as kids and made this beautiful iceberg. To be clear, this one is completely separate from the last series. I didn't make the last iceberg. That was created by someone who goes by Guff online, there's their YouTube, and I just made the videos. I didn't create the actual iceberg. If your suggestions didn't make it into the iceberg, then I'm sorry about that. I probably didn't see the suggestions since there were quite a lot of comments, but thank you all for your suggestions. There were a lot of entries that I had completely forgotten about that I remembered thanks to these comments, and I'm glad I got to add them into this iceberg. As always, if you're a younger kid, I'd suggest that you click off the video since we're going to get into some creepy subject matter coming up. Here we go. Starting off at the tip of the iceberg image, we've got the SpongeBob Flying Dutchman. So this entry is referring to the Flying Dutchman from SpongeBob. It's pretty self-explanatory, but if you don't know, this character has some pretty creepy moments and puts SpongeBob and Patrick through some pretty bad stuff. There's also an episode where he's SpongeBob's roommate and he transforms into very creepy forms, which I know definitely scared a lot of kids. Bloody stick figure animations. Back in the 2000s, stick figures fighting was the coolest thing for some reason. Lots of these animations were bloody and violent, which scared lots of kids, including me. Nowadays, these videos are very, very nostalgic, but back then they were pretty scary to some. Booba. Booba was an old show that was kind of similar to Teletubbies. I personally loved it back when I was like 2 or 3 years old, but seeing footage of it nowadays, I can totally see how kids found this creepy. It's just weird and doesn't make sense most of the time. I can totally imagine being a younger kid, seeing this late at night or early in the morning and just being scared and confused by the weird flashing lights and colors. Honestly, I don't know what they were thinking. Family Guy. This is pretty self-explanatory, but some might be confused by it. When I was a kid, I was frequently warned not to watch shows like Family Guy, The Simpsons, and South Park, as they were inappropriate and scary. Family Guy itself went through a super edgy phase in the 2000s, and lots of kids were witness to very violent and bloody scenes when watching the show, either with an older sibling or maybe on Adult Swim when the kid wasn't supposed to be watching. I can totally see why people suggested this. Happy Appy. Happy Appy was an incredibly popular creepypasta about an old Nick Jr. TV show about a claymation apple on a rusty stick helping kids with their injuries. Eventually, the show gets all evil and starts to predict real-world actual tragedies and depicts kids getting hurt. The writer then starts getting stalked by the creator of the show, who's like a monster guy or something. It's not a great story, but at the time it was very creepy, and I thought it might have actually existed. I remember looking at old YouTube videos online claiming to display real footage of the show, and obviously they were fake, but it was still cool to think about. THX logo. Here, let me just play it. This thing scared a lot of kids because of the loud sound. I personally always liked the logo since it would usually play before my Star Wars and Toy Story DVDs, so I knew I was in for something good after it. But there were many comments talking about how much this scared them, and I get it. Often the sound was way louder than the rest of the audio coming from the TV, so it could really just come as a shock. Twilight Goes Crazy. This is referring to an episode of My Little Pony by the name of Lesson 0, where after trying very hard to solve a friendship problem that isn't there, Twilight snaps and decides to make one. The following scenes show her being crazy with this face. Yeah, I remember this freaking me out back in the day, and it was a huge meme in the Brony community. The Glitch. The Glitch was an old video from the channel Corridor Digital. It was basically a video game crossover with a bunch of different characters suffering through a glitchy world. The scariest scene in my opinion is this one of Mario clipping through the floor. His face starts to get all deformed and creepy as he mutters his final words being "help me." Eventually, Minecraft Steve unplugs the world and the video ends. I was always fascinated with this video, finding it through the Kids React video on it, and yeah, it was pretty scary. The House of the Dead games. The House of the Dead is a series of arcade games where you shoot zombies and save survivors. The games are awesome, but being a little kid seeing one of them at the arcade, movie theater, or bowling alley could be pretty creepy. I think just the whole concept of having zombies coming at you and blasting them to bloody bits is pretty disturbing for a younger kid. The House of the Dead is best known online thanks to the terrible voice acting in the second game.
I've been waiting for you, friends.
Goldman! Do you know what you're doing?
I'm fully aware of what I'm doing. Can't you see? Man committed a sin, disturbing the life cycle of nature. The original sin that man is responsible to protect the life cycle.
Happy Wheels. Oof, this one hits close to home. Happy Wheels is an incredibly popular game that was all over YouTube back in the early 2010s. The game basically consisted of the player trying to direct someone on a vehicle through an obstacle course made to kill them. What made the game scary to me and many other kids was the gore. Though unrealistic, the blood and guts disturbed a lot of kids, and that's why the community suggested it. Sonic.exe. Sonic.exe is a classic creepypasta about an evil copy of Sonic. The story itself was and is terrible, but there was some pretty creepy imagery involved. What scared me the most is the game that someone made to go along with the story. The game had some pretty creepy imagery, including this image. This I am God screen really just stayed in my mind whenever I was trying to go to sleep. This, of course, scared tons of kids and solidly enforced itself in our collective memory. There are a bunch of sequels to the story, and they're all pretty terrible. New Sponge. This entry is referring to a scene in SpongeBob SquarePants where SpongeBob does a commercial shoot and gets used as an actual sponge. This scared lots of kids and especially me. I was probably like 2 or 3 years old when I saw this, and it made me never want to watch SpongeBob again. Seeing SpongeBob in pain being used for disgusting things was always very disturbing. We are like brothers, but closer. This entry is referring to this scene from SpongeBob.
'Cause you and me, we're like brothers, only closer.
Yeah, it's pretty weird and kind of unsettling. I personally find it pretty funny, but I could totally see how lots of people could find it creepy. Toy Story Monkey. Let's be real, this monkey is terrifying. When I first saw Toy Story 3 in the theaters, I just looked away because of how scary I found it. Honestly, I feel like the animators purposely made this monkey terrifying to really make it feel like a threat. The monkey itself is actually a real-life toy, which is just as creepy in real life. I also want to mention that these little monkeys were used as grenades in the Call of Duty Zombies franchise, and they scared kids there too. Honestly, like, when they first made this toy, it wasn't made to be scary. This was supposed to be a children's toy for kids to play with. But, it's so bizarre. Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit. This was a movie about Wallace and Gromit starting a pest control business. I'm not gonna spoil it, but eventually Wallace turns into a rabbit, which scared a lot of kids, including my friend Will. I know you're watching, Will. But yeah, it was actually pretty scary to a lot of kids. The fact that it's stop motion alone makes it pretty creepy on its own, but the imagery and story are pretty scary as well. Tip of the Iceberg. Where the Wild Things Are movie. Where the Wild Things Are is a classic children's book written by Maurice Sendak. In 2009, a movie adaptation was released and it was terrible. It was incredibly realistic looking, and for some reason there was a lot of nightmarish imagery in the film, especially a scene where one of the Wild Thing's arms gets ripped off. Yeah, I got no idea what they were thinking. The movie flopped in the box office, and not many people actually liked it that much. It wasn't a great adaptation of the book, and it was just overall disturbing. Spirit Halloween animatronics. This one is pretty self-explanatory, but it makes sense. For those who don't know, Spirit Halloween is a seasonal Halloween chain store that started in 1983. They've usually got animatronics on display that you can activate with a little stepping pad. A lot of the time, the animatronics would spring to life and just terrify kids. I remember once I was at a spirit store and I saw a kid step on the pad and get jump scared. The kid was so startled that he basically flew backwards, and it was hilarious. Jurassic Park death scenes. This one is very self-explanatory. The scenes in Jurassic Park where a human would get eaten alive were very frightening when you saw them as a kid. SpongeBob hot sauce. This entry is referring to a scene of SpongeBob, and yeah, it's pretty weird. Turns out this face is actually Tom Kenny, the voice actor of SpongeBob. Many people had commented about how much this scene scared them, and yeah, I get it. To those who were traumatized by this, I'm sorry for bringing it back into your memory. I'm Scared. I'm Scared is a meta-horror game that protagonizes the player, putting them in a surreal first-person experience. The game is done with a pixelated art style and was played by big YouTubers like Markiplier. It's most famous for this face. Yeah, that's pretty creepy. Return of Raggedy Android. This was an episode of the Nickelodeon cartoon My Life as a Teenage Robot. To make it brief, the main character is a robot who gets treated like a robot by the people around her. She doesn't like this and wants to be treated like a real human girl. So, her creator makes a skin suit that she can wear to make her look like a human. The thing clings on her like Venom from Spider-Man, and it's pretty unsettling. Eventually, the exoskin very creepily attacks XJ9 while she's sleeping, and it's just unnerving. Imagine a little kid watching TV only to see this. Yeah, I 100% understand why this scared so many people. I first saw the episode in 2018, and even then I was surprised that this aired on Nickelodeon. SpongeBob Gorilla. This entry is referring to that scene in SpongeBob where Patrick dresses up as a gorilla only to reveal a live-action person in a gorilla suit tear off a Patrick skin suit. The Gorilla Man then puts Patrick and Sandy in a bag and starts smashing it against the floor and beating it up in a bunch of different ways. Eventually, the gorilla takes SpongeBob and rips him in half. SpongeBob then asks what a gorilla is doing underwater. The gorilla then flees with a little horse guy, and yeah, it's just very weird. The end of the scene perfectly encapsulates my feelings on it. Jonah Pumpkinseed. This entry is referring to a scene in VeggieTales where the pirates who don't do anything and Jonah from the Bible enter an arena and get captured. They are then put in guillotines and they see a pumpkin with a face on it get smashed by the blade. Yeah, honestly, it's pretty violent and off-putting when watching as a little kid. You wouldn't really expect something like this from VeggieTales. The Garfield Show Exterminator ad. This entry is referring to an episode of the Garfield Show where John Arbuckle's house is full of mice. John then shows Garfield an advert for an extermination company. It shows 2D animation of mice being exterminated while a voice maniacally advertises the company's services. I used to be a huge fan of the Garfield Show back in the day, and I kind of remember this freaking me out. The Mayan Calendar. The Mayan calendar is a system of calendars used in pre-Columbian Mesoamerica and in many modern countries in the Guatemalan highlands. The year 2012 was suspected to be the end of the world because the Mayan calendar ended in that year. Of course, nothing happened, but there was a lot of speculation as to what would happen, and of course, the threat of the end of the world was a very disturbing and anxiety-inducing thing to many Gen Z children. I remember learning about it through a video on that old 3DS video platform with those little dinosaur claymations. Apparently, the Mayan calendar was inaccurate, and it's actually 2021 that's supposed to be the end of the world, or 2022 or something. So, yeah. 2-sentence horror stories. This one is pretty self-explanatory. 2-sentence horror stories are just that. The one that scared me the most goes a little something like this. I begin tucking him into bed, and he tells me, "Daddy, check for monsters under my bed." I look underneath for his amusement, and I see him, another him, under the bed, looking back at me, quivering and whispering, "Daddy, there's somebody on my bed." Don't hug me, I'm scared. So this was the #1 requested entry. I got tons and tons of comments on every Iceberg video asking why this wasn't on the list. Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is a series of videos created by British filmmakers Becky Sloan and Joseph Pelling that are essentially a parody of kids shows, but they're the exact opposite. The first episode released in 2011 and it caught the eye of many, many people. If you somehow haven't seen a Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared video, then I suggest that you do. Essentially, they all start off like innocent puppet shows until an inanimate object comes to life and starts singing to the puppets and teaching them a lesson. It seems fine at first, but the lessons are always very flawed and incorrect. The series has spawned tons and tons of fan theories, with the biggest ones being about how media influences the youth in negative ways. That's a very simplified version of explaining it, since there were tons of little hidden things in the videos, and if you haven't watched Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, then I suggest that you do. Maybe just pause this video, watch the series, it's very, very good. Garbage Pail Kids. So this one is more of an 80s kid thing, but I know it sure scared me. Garbage Pail Kids were a brand of trading cards parodying the Cabbage Patch Dolls. Lots of these cards had some disturbing designs and names. There was also a movie which was critically panned and had disgusting designs for the characters. I remember watching the Irate Gamers video on them and being really scared of the characters, and that preventing me from sleeping a few times. Ren and Stimpy. Ren and Stimpy was a classic Nickelodeon cartoon show that many people have fond memories of. The show had a lot of really gross humor in it, which could often be scary to younger kids. I feel like generally it was for older audiences, but a lot of younger audiences watched it as well and got scared. The creator of the show was a terrible person and a child predator. His name is John Crisfalucci. Don't support him or his work. Blame It on Hoodhim made a great video on the topic, so I suggest that you check that out. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory animatronics burning scene. So in the 2005 Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie, they added a scene that wasn't in the book or the original movie. It showed a bunch of animatronic dolls resembling the It's a Small World characters from Disney, greeting the golden ticket winners with a song. Eventually some pyrotechnics go wrong and everything just goes up in flames. The animatronics start to melt and burn with eyeballs popping out and limbs falling off and just general scary imagery. I remember I always hated this scene whenever I watched this movie, and well, so did you guys. Thomas Bull Scene. This is referring to a scene in Thomas the Tank Engine by the name of Bullseyes. A bull stands on the tracks while a train has to pass by. I can see how this bull character could be kind of unnerving, just standing there, when you're a tiny little kid. This entry was suggested by Jackson of the Chill Hour podcast, which I was on. As the name implies, it's very chill, so if you're interested, I would suggest checking it out. Surfshark VPN. This entry is referring to the many ways your information could get stolen online. Some say that just by watching a video like this on public Wi-Fi, data miners and hackers could be stealing your information right now. If that were the case, you'd be safe if you had Surfshark VPN, which is today's sponsor. With Surfshark VPN, your internet browsing is completely encrypted and safe. Do you use an incognito tab when you're searching up private content? Well, guess what? All that data is probably being tracked by the websites you visit, the search engines you use, and your internet service provider. However, with Surfshark VPN, your internet search history is private and none of it gets saved by Surfshark or anyone else. Most internet users aren't even aware of the amount of surveillance, limitation, and data mining done with their personal information on a daily basis. Our privacy is becoming less and less of a thing online, but we can take it back by using services like Surfshark VPN. Have you ever been to another country and seen how much better their Netflix selection is? Canada. Well, Surfshark can take you straight to any country's Netflix with the click of a button and a refresh of the page. Look, I partner with Surfshark because it's a service that I really like and believe in. Hell, I use the service all the time and it's actually the best. Use promo code Raymundo to get 83% off plus 3 extra months for free. Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk. Now you can surf the internet with your own set of rules. The link is in the description. I mean, guys, come on. You pay like $2 a month for this. What else could you buy with $2? A candy bar, 8 gumballs, and or bouncy balls? Do yourself a favor and sign up. It helps me, but honestly, it really helps you more than anyone. Shallow waters. School PSAs. So this one is pretty self-explanatory, and I'm sure that you can see how something like this would be terrifying. I don't want this video to get hidden, since this is very sensitive material, but I think you guys would know how and why this would be traumatizing. Black licorice. So, back in the day, Nickelodeon offered little flash games on their website called Clickamajigs. This one was for Halloween and featured little characters with the faces of kids going around trick-or-treating. You got a bowl of caramel and black licorice. If you give the kids caramel, they are happy. But eventually, you run out of caramel. If you give a kid black licorice, this is what happens.
Black licorice. I like licorice.
Yeah, what the hell were they thinking? Who greenlit this and thought it was okay for kids? It was kind of a prank because you could then email the game to a friend and prank them, having them not expect the jump scare, but still. House fancy toenail scene. Alright, so this one's a bit of a gory one, so I'm just warning you now that this might be a bit triggering for some. So, for whatever reason, around season 6 of SpongeBob, they made this big shift in humor where there was a lot of just really gross or really mean-spirited jokes in them. In this episode, SpongeBob is helping Squidward move furniture. They're moving a couch around, and unfortunately, said couch falls directly on Squidward's toe. The leg of the couch keeps falling on his toe, and eventually his toenail gets ripped out. Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking either. The scene is pretty hard to watch, and I don't really see how it's funny. The scene has been disturbing kids for many years, and it probably will continue to do so for years. Conker's Bad Fur Day Zombies. Alright, so Conker's Bad Fur Day was a game that parodied classic Rare games like Banjo-Kazooie. The game looked family-friendly but was completely the opposite, and that was the joke. Some kids were bought the game by parents who couldn't tell that it wasn't your standard kid-friendly collect-a-thon. The game was released in 2001 for the Nintendo 64 and later remade on the Xbox in 2005 with better graphics and gameplay. In these games, there were zombies that are honestly kinda creepy looking. Even though kids weren't supposed to play this game, I still feel bad for the kids who did. These little cute characters with their eyeballs popping out are just... yeah. Brian Griffin's Bad Trip. Alright, so in the Family Guy episode, Seahorse Seashell Party, Brian Griffin takes mushrooms and has a really bad trip. We see the entire thing with animation that is far better than normal Family Guy, and it's very, very nightmarish. One of the most disturbing things is when Brian finds Peter Griffin being cooked alive on a rotisserie while singing The Wheels on the Bus. The imagery and sounds are very disturbing. I imagine some kids might have just been flipping through channels only to find this disturbing shit. Mac Tonight. Alright, so this one probably relates more to older generations, but apparently this scared some of my audience. Mac Tonight was a McDonald's mascot back in the 1980s, and you might recognize him from St. Pepsi's Late Night Delight album. More specifically, the music video for the song Enjoy Yourself. I could see why Mac Tonight could be seen as creepy, but to me he's actually pretty cool. The commercials are really cool and have an awesome vaporwave vibe going on, so if you're into that type of thing, I'd suggest checking them out. Gregory's Room. Gregory's Room is a creepypasta about a Nick Jr. show about a little character talking about how much fun he and the viewer will have together in his room. A YouTuber by the name of Seinfeld Spitstain, creator of the Jimmy Neutron Happy Family Happy Hour video, made a video displaying this alleged pilot, and it's pretty creepy. Eventually, Gregory states that it'll just be the two of you, alone in his room. No parents, no police, no one to hear you scream. He needs love. Let's do a quick little hydration drinking game, alright? I say creepy a lot in these videos, you guys are pointing it out. Every time I say creepy, take a shot of water. You'll be very hydrated by the end of this. Tails Doll. The Tails Doll was a character in the game Sonic R that was just strange. The character creeped out a lot of kids playing, but that's not all. The reason most people are familiar with this character is the creepypasta that came out about it. Nowadays the story is pretty silly, but it sure used to be creepy. It ends with a bloody plush form of the character appearing in the writer of the story's room and killing them, I think. Yeah, I don't know, it's kind of silly. Alfred's Playhouse. Alright, this is a really weird, bizarre, and disturbing animation series from Newgrounds. It's about a little character named Alfred going through a bunch of crazy set pieces, and honestly, it's kinda hard to watch. There are multiple episodes and the whole thing is just really nonsensical and weird, and I'm glad I didn't have to watch through this as a kid. I feel like it would just really upset me. Ponies sliding into boxes gone wrong. Alright, so back in the day, the Brony community was booming. Ponies were all over the internet, and if you were in that community, then you were having a lot of fun. If somehow you don't know what a Brony is, then let me just quickly let you know. Brony is a mix of bro and pony. The term was created by fans of the show on the internet message board 4chan. Generally, bronies are just male adult fans of My Little Pony, but kids can be bronies too. The female version is a Pegasister. The community was massive online, so much that there were multiple brony conventions in real life. The biggest and most official one being BronyCon, which I personally had a ton of fun at when I was 10 years old. Online brony fan videos were a huge thing, and there was this one series of animations that were beloved by the community, including me. Ponies sliding into boxes. There was this one little parody of the animations where it looked normal until one of the ponies slides into a box of nails. I remember loving the original animations and always being disturbed whenever the bloody version would play, and I'm sure that many other kids were. Dead Bart. Dead Bart is a creepypasta about, shocker, Bart Simpson passing away. In the story, the writer asks Simpsons creator Matt Groening about it. Matt then starts crying and gives him a DVD that doesn't work at first but eventually does. See, the thing is, the story explains that the reason that some episodes of The Simpsons are counted weirdly officially is because there's a missing episode, being Dead Bart. The writer then sees a weird Simpsons episode from this DVD where Bart Simpson breaks an airplane window and gets sucked out of it and dies. The Simpsons visit his grave where his body lays, and then they start crying as the camera pans out only to show a bunch of graves displaying guest stars of The Simpsons, showing their death dates, which to some are accurate, such as Michael Jackson. This frame of Homer's face melting off from an episode of The Simpsons is often showed alongside this creepypasta since he kinda looks like Bart in it. Overall, the story freaked me out despite not watching The Simpsons. It doesn't really hold up that well in terms of a story, but I still remember it fondly. Evil Pickle. On October 16th, 2007, the video The Evil Pickle was released. It features a gardener picking cucumbers from her garden, only for one to grow and kill her. Said pickle then finds a boy playing piano and kills him too. A boy reading Harry Potter then starts fighting the evil pickle with a banana, eventually killing the pickle and eating it. Later, in 2018, a video by the name of Evil Pickle the Movie was released on the YouTube channel WCK Life, featuring 2 boys getting killed by an Evil Pickle Rick plush. There are some sequels to this video and they are all gold. Both of these Evil Pickle videos are extremely charming and I would recommend giving them both a watch. Judge Doom's death. Judge Doom is the antagonist in the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The character first gets steamrolled and then melted in a very brutal way. If you take a look at the comments of the clip, you'll see people recounting how much this scared them. Wii crash. This one is something that I can totally personally relate to. The Nintendo Wii would sometimes just crash. Said crash wouldn't just make the Wii turn off, no. The Wii would freeze and play a really loud, high-pitched tone. This always scared me a lot, since most of the time it would happen would be while using the Amazon Prime app or Netflix app, which made whatever you were watching a lot more quiet than other things on the Wii. So whenever it would crash, the sound was really, really loud. How many of you guys out there experienced this? Lost episodes. This entry is referring to the subgenre of creepypastas, talking about episodes of what are usually kids shows that are dark and creepy and often have a character be evil or die or something. Often these creepypastas are very cheap and low-effort stories with super predictable plots and everything. Although I do remember being scared by quite a lot of these stories. When I was like 8 or so, it definitely makes sense that lots of other kids were scared by these too. Seeing dark perversions of cartoons always freaked me out and made me see the originals in a different light a lot of the time. Bloody Jigglypuff. This entry is referring to this iconic creepypasta picture of the Pokemon Jigglypuff with creepy bloody eyes. I don't have much to say about this, but I do want to show you this video by Adam Tiller. This image was used for the video displaying the backwards version of the Lavender Town theme, and it's definitely pretty creepy. Madness Combat. Madness Combat is a series of flash animations made by Matt Jolly, also known as Crinkles. The reason these things exist is to display excessive violence, and as a kid, I really didn't like gore and bloody violence, so I can totally see someone being really disturbed by this series. There's also a Madness Combat Newgrounds game, which I just recently played for the first time, and it's actually very fun. These characters have made a resurgence recently, and I'm not exactly sure why. They might be in Friday Night Funkin' or something, but lots of people are especially interested in Tricky the Clown. Why that is, I'm not totally sure, but I'm gonna put him in the thumbnail so people click. Happy Mask Salesman. In The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask and The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, the character by the name of the Happy Mask Salesman has a very creepy look to him. He's got a bunch of kind of weird masks on his back, including one of Mario. There are also some creepypastas about the guy being evil, so I totally understand being scared by this guy. I think I first learned about him through the Peanut Butter Gamers G-Files episode on him, which is a YouTuber that I don't watch anymore, but if he brought back that series, I might check him out again. Bloody Mario games. When I think Bloody Mario games, I think Super Mario Flash. When I was a little kid, I didn't have any Mario games that I could play on console, so I spent a lot of time on those old Flash game websites, playing lots of different games. My favorite of the bunch being Mario Combat, which was awesome. But Mario Flash had a disturbing twist. As mentioned earlier, I really didn't like bloody things, so whenever I accidentally found this game and started playing it, the bloody death of the Goombas in Mario always disturbed me, and I always called my mom over to help me get rid of the game. To be clear, I was probably like 6 or 7 years old whenever this was happening, so seeing stuff like this was pretty bad. I'm sure there's a lot of other bloody Mario games, but this is the one that stands out to me the most. Game Boy Camera. The Game Boy Camera was exactly what it sounded like. A tiny camera that could take pictures when inserted into a Game Boy. Hell, it even used to be the smallest camera in the Guinness Book of World Records. But nothing about that sounds creepy, right? Well, since this was a Nintendo thing, it wasn't just a camera. The Game Boy camera acted like a game, meaning that you could take pictures of people and then put them into little games. There was an RPG style section with a couple different options, one of them being run. If you decide to click run, then you could be greeted by these faces. Yeah. These faces were pretty popular in the online creepy community, and that's where I first saw them. When I was a little kid, I thought these guys were really, really disturbing, and they definitely kept me up at night a few times. There's something about the low quality of the pictures and the way that they're drawn, and I don't know. It's just weird. The Chuckle Hut. The Chuckle Hut is a video uploaded in 2011 of an animated woman shaking around with a stretched out mouth with creepy music playing in the background. To be completely honest, this video has a pretty strong nightmare or fever dream vibe to it, and it's certainly very weird. I don't really know what the point of it is, there might be some hidden lore to it, but I certainly don't know what it is. Fun Video TV. Okay, so I feel like this entry is gonna bring back a lot of long forgotten memories for a lot of you guys. So back in like 2012, the song Gangnam Style was the biggest thing in the world. All ages loved it, I certainly loved it, all my friends loved it, and something that was also very popular was Angry Birds. Same goes for that. So Fun Video TV decided to make a video combining them, and yeah. The video has tons of views, and the person made multiple other videos that were basically the same thing. There were also a lot of really weird, creepy videos featuring horror movie characters just dancing around and just doing overall weird things. Also, a lot of the character models just looked terrible, and I feel like I got freaked out by a few of these videos back in the day. I run my mouth about how terrible YouTube Kids content is nowadays, but was what we watched really all that much better? I mean, this shit's literally the same crap you find on YouTube Kids. It's some weird stuff. HowToBasic. This one is pretty self-explanatory if you've ever seen a HowToBasic video, but if you haven't, then, well, you're gonna see some weird stuff. HowToBasic is pretty much a crazy bait and switch. You'll click on a video expecting, well, a tutorial video, only to get what it seems like you clicked on, at first. Soon after, shit hits the fan and the video gets crazy. Many eggs are thrown, things are destroyed, and full-on chaos proceeds. I remember finding this video through the React video done on it. The videos displayed on that were pretty tame, so I didn't expect to see a big fish being desecrated, which I know scared me and a lot of other kids. It wasn't really scary, I guess. It was more just disturbing and a disregard for this animal's carcass. The channel is still going strong to this day with some really high-budget videos coming out. McDonald's Funky Chicken. Alright, just check this out.
Okay. Did you know there's a dance called the Funky Chicken? Yeah. Now flap your arms. Hey, wiggle your knees. Yo, do the Funky Chicken. Funky Chicken. Yeah. McDonald's Chicken McNuggets. They can't dance, but the only meat they contain is chicken breast. Some fun, some food, it's all inside this happy meal.
Yeah. What the hell? What were they thinking? Why? I do not know. I feel like many people saw this and then never saw it again and couldn't find it online and then just, I guess, shook it off as a dream. But no, this abomination is very, very real. The designs are just so disgusting, and I guess if they wanted to make a commercial that stuck with people, they sure did. Godzilla NES. Godzilla NES is a very iconic creepypasta that many people really, really love, and some really hate. It's got a very controversial ending, which I won't spoil here since I suggest that you check out the story, but basically the story is about a Godzilla NES game that seems normal at first, but then a bunch of weird things start happening. The imagery itself is very creepy, and I remember watching the Mullet Mike sticky paddle video on it and being freaked out by it. Halo Flood. So this is referring to the parasitical alien species from the Halo games by the name of the Flood. The way in which they infect things and move and multiply is really disgusting, and it works so well in the game. I played my first Halo game at, I think, 14, and even then I was like, geez, this is intense. The Flood come in different forms for you to kill. Halo fans, don't get mad at me if I don't explain this in the best way, since I don't know much about Halo lore, I just like shooting things. In my opinion, the grossest of these are the small flood things. However, what I think disturb kids the most are these more zombie-like forms. You see, these flood creatures would attack both humans and aliens, slowly infecting them and turning them into these really grotesque versions of their former selves. Honestly, I think the Flood are still creepy to this day. Alright everyone, that wraps it up for part 1 of the Gen Z Childhood Trauma Iceberg Community Edition, or part 5. I'm gonna make this quick, but something that I find really cool about this, and what makes this really special, is that I didn't make this iceberg, you guys did. I mean, I put it together, but all these entries are from what you guys suggested, what scared you as kids, and honestly, it feels good to give back to the community that made me, essentially. If this video didn't feel the scariest, then, well, there's a reason for that, because I kind of saved a lot of the more horror, like really scary stuff for the bottom of the iceberg. The original childhood trauma iceberg kind of had a lot of the scary stuff dispersed between each layer. So I kept a lot of the less scary stuff up here, and then now the real terrifying stuff is going to be the next video. So stay tuned for that. Again, big thank you to Surfshark VPN. If you can, use code Raymundo. I 100% recommend it. I'm going to save fan art for the next video. It's going to be a cool little tribute to everyone, and so that's why it's not being displayed here. But I think this is it. I'm still actually making some slight changes to the bottom of this iceberg, the next 3 layers. So if you got any suggestions of really, really scary stuff, then let me know, because I might just add it in. Alright everyone, I think that's about it, and I hope you enjoyed this video.